The game I chose for my video essay is Geometry Dash, and right now I'm just showing you the opening panel of the app, the avatars that you can choose, well, the skins, I should say, that you can choose, the shops where you can upgrade, get specialty skins. This other web page shows where you can play other people's maps online and do other challenges. And then like other mobile games, you have like these daily check-ins where you get gems or like you get rewarded for it. The objective of this game is to control this square-shaped character as it automatically moves throughout various levels within the game. There are obstacles throughout the levels, and you have to avoid them while staying on beat with the music in order to win the level. Each level gets slightly more difficult, but there's a practice mode for each level that you can use to see the level better and get used to it. That way you're not getting any surprises as you go throughout the map. Geometry Dash revolves around one core mechanic, and that is the jump mechanic. To make the square jump, all you have to do is just tap your screen if you're playing on a touchscreen device, or tap a button if you're playing with a controller. I would say with the jump being the only mechanic, it does get a little tedious when playing this game, just because like you have to really time it perfectly, that way you don't hit an obstacle. Additionally, the secondary mechanic is when the game introduces like a flip segment, like with the portals, like the one that was just seen here. The one that was seen here is meant for the plane, the plane character to change, but there's other ones where it will flip you upside down, where you're like on the top of the map instead of being like on the bottom where the floor is. In Rules of Play by Salen and Zimmerman 2004, they mention how secondary mechanics within the game are present to deepen the engagement of the player because they keep the gameplay dynamic and make it challenging. And I would say from my personal experience with this game, I can see how secondary mechanics do make games more engaging for a player. Like, this game is very, I want to call it addicting, but it's like once you die multiple times within the game and you have to keep restarting, it keeps you wanting to keep playing it more so you can see how far you can actually get until you eventually just beat the level. The argument that is communicated in Geometry Dash through its mechanics is persistence and mastery. The game created this environment where failure is inevitable, but you learn as you go. So eventually, you will succeed and beat the level. As stated in The Ethics of Computer Games by Sigart 2009, video games that revolve around repetition and practice argue that mastery can only be achieved through sustained effort and resilience. In Geometry Dash, shortcuts and external aid don't exist. If you crash into an obstacle, you have to restart from the very beginning of the level. It does get really frustrating when you do crash into an obstacle and you have to keep like restarting. That's why like I personally do like the practice modes, because the practice modes has checkpoints. So if you do like crash into an obstacle at one point, it'll restart you just before you hit that obstacle so you can continue throughout the map. But in practice mode, it does allow you to have like mini checkpoints so you know how far you've actually gotten within a level. An additional argument that the game makes is about the psychological process of learning through trial and error. It's important within games that, for certain games, that there is trial and error, because it doesn't make the game feel as like it's less engaging. Like, it keeps you wanting to move through it, understand the process of it, and understand why things happened the way they did, so you can go back and fix your mistakes and change it. That way you can progress throughout it. So trial and error is important within games like this. By making the player see the same obstacles repeatedly, it reinforces the idea that mastery is a gradual process, and that doing something more than once is an essential part of learning. Even in real life scenarios, it's important to, like, if you keep messing up at something, it's important to do it more than once. That way you can get a feel for it and get used to it. So every time you go back to it, it doesn't seem as hard or grueling. It just gets easier and easier. So in Geometry Dash, it's like even though it's frustrating going through a level multiple times. Like throughout this video, for 2 of these levels, I've had like 20 plus attempts because I kept crashing into obstacles at certain parts, and just it gets frustrating to the point where you end up crashing into an object on accident that you were never crashing into before. But if you just be confident in it and be patient, then you'll get through the process of that trial and error, and you'll see that it's gradual, and you'll end up winning the level after a certain amount of time. The values that the game privileges through its gameplay, mechanics, and dynamics are self-improvement, resilience, and precision. The purpose of the game's design is to emphasize the importance of repeated attempts within a game because the improvement of the player's skills will gradually show. You can't skip parts of the level or take shortcuts, so the design of the game is to really force the player to overcome increasingly difficult challenges. To touch base on the self-improvement part is when you do is when you have multiple attempts and you keep having to restart the level, you are showing like signs of self-improvement because you're eventually progressing through the level to end up winning. And to touch on the precision part is like with the jump mechanic. You have to be precise of how you're jumping because you can't just like jump willy-nilly and expect to make it over an obstacle. Sometimes it happens on accident where you make it over an obstacle you didn't expect to. But it's real like precision based on making it through the levels so you can eventually end up winning. Within this game, the relationship between the mechanics / dynamics and the game goals is that the mechanics are linked tightly to its overarching goal, which is to complete each level. While failure is an inevitable part of the process, success is defined by mastering the rhythm and avoiding the obstacles. The relationship between the gameplay and the goals is that each failure brings the player closer to success. The strengths of the game are its ability to engage the players in the process of learning and skill development. The weaknesses, however, is the frustration the game brings, which often accompanies the repetitive nature of the game. With each failure bringing the player closer to success, it again shows that beating the levels in this game is a gradual process and you can't rush it, because the more you rush it and then the more times you're going to have to restart it. So it's better off to take your time and try to focus on winning the game. Winning the level, instead of trying to like speed up the process in your head, if that makes sense, on getting through the level, because then you won't make it through it. Claims about the world that the rules of Geometry Dash make are that you can't have success without failure, but eventually after that success comes the reward. As discussed by Dweck, 2009, in Growth Mindset, while failure is seen as something negative, is a vital part of the learning process, which aligns with the ideas of resilience. The game's rules suggest that success comes from learning and not avoiding failure. It's rewarding knowing that you were persistent enough to achieve the accomplishment of beating the level. Going back to how the argument of this game ties back into real life scenarios, it's true that you can't have success without failure, but you have to grow into learning through those failures to achieve your success. And then eventually a reward comes with that, whether it's the acknowledgement that you powered through the situation you were having or the actual reward that comes with it. While the game promotes persistence, it also raises questions about the psychological toll it can have on a player. The high difficulty of the game can push players into compulsive behavior sometimes, leading to excessive repetition and frustration. As noted in Lazaro, 2004, and Why We Play Games, it's possible that this can be seen as an ethical dilemma, which also means how much is too much before the experience becomes unhealthy or detrimental to the player's well-being. Success with this game only comes through sustained effort. Challenge is central to the game's design, but repetition without alternate paths or difficulty adjustments can create a barrier for some players. To conclude this analysis, Geometry Dash is a great example of how games display complex messages about learning and self-improvement. Through its dynamics and mechanics, the game illustrates that success is not an event, but a process. and that failure should not be seen as a setback, but a vital part of the achieving process.